The first question says, in the S phase of the cell cycle, the chromosome number is increased, the amount of DNA is reduced to half, the amount of DNA doubles in each cell, or the amount of DNA remains the same in each cell. So the full form of S phase, as you all know, is the synthesis phase. And what is this S phase a part of? It is a part of a phase of the cell cycle that is called interphase. You know, interphase is wrongly called resting phase. Actually, the cell is not resting over there. So you might think that because it is called a resting phase, the cell is metabolically inactive. Actually, during the interphase, the cell is metabolically very active and it is growing also. So in interphase, you have three phases. One is gap 1, S phase, and gap 2 phase. So the cell first enters into the gap 1. It's also called growth phase or gap phase. And then it enters the S phase. And after that, it enters into the G2 phase. In fact, a cell spends more time in the interphase than it would spend dividing. 95%. 95% of the duration of the cell cycle is interphase. Yes, after that, what happens? After that, the cell now enters into M phase. And the remaining 5% of time, it is spending it in M phase. You know what we also call M phase as cell division proper, because this is where actually cell division occurs. And you all are aware that in this cell division proper, we have karyokinesis, where the nuclear division takes place, and we have cytokinesis, where the cytoplasmic division takes place. In S phase, children, don't forget, very important, lot of questions based on S phase. Two major events take place. One is DNA gets duplicated. DNA duplication. Or it is also called chromosomal duplication, because chromosomes are nothing but DNA molecules. And the second event that happens during the S phase is centriole duplication. Centriole duplication happens only in animal cells, because plant cells do not have any centriole. And this happens in cytoplasm of the cell. The centriole duplication takes place in the cytoplasm, whereas the DNA duplication takes place inside the nucleus. Only in animal cells there is duplication of centriole. So amount of DNA will double in a cell during the S phase. Okay, now what exactly is doubling over here? Let me just take one chromosome. Now so now that I've told you the answer, I'll move to the next slide. I think I have some space in the next slide where I can draw the diagram and I can tell you what exactly happens when the chromosomes undergo duplication. Okay, so in S phase, two major events happen. One is the DNA duplication happens in the cytoplasm, inside the nucleus. And the second one is centriole duplication happens inside the cytoplasm. DNA duplication in the nucleus. So I was telling you, what exactly do you mean by duplication of DNA, children? See, take a chromosome, for example. So this is a chromosome. I'm going to call this chromosome as an unduplicated chromosome. I'm going to call it as an unduplicated chromosome because it is yet to duplicate its DNA. In this kind of an unduplicated chromosome, you can all see a constriction at the center. This constriction is called centromere. You are all aware of the chromosome morphology. The constriction in the center is referred to as the centromere. Now this part above the centromere is called the P-arm. And the part below the centromere is called the Q-arm. And please remember the P arm and the Q arm together, what is it called? It is called chromatid. So the P arm and the Q arm together is one chromatid, children. So a chromosome that has only one chromatid is what is called an unduplicated chromosome. Now, what is this one chromatid? How many DNA molecules is one chromatid equal to? So one chromatid equals to one DNA molecule. So you can see the DNA here like this. I'm showing you the DNA strand. So the whole thing is one DNA molecule. So this itself becomes a chromatid. This undergoes condensation to become chromatid. Okay, so one chromatid is equal to one DNA molecule. So a chromosome which has only one DNA molecule is said to be unduplicated. It has not undergone duplication. Now let us see what happens when this chromosome enters S phase. Now during S phase, the number of DNA molecules will get doubled. So see now what happens to this chromosome. It had a DNA already. I'm showing the earlier DNA in red color only, okay? So it had a DNA molecule. This whole thing is one DNA, okay? Don't think it is one above, one below. The whole thing is one DNA molecule. Now, because it has gone through S phase, it has another copy of DNA. See, I'm showing the second copy of DNA in blue. And this second copy of DNA, I'm using that word already. It's a copy. It's a duplicate of the red one. So red and blue DNA molecules are both copies of each other. So now you can see this chromosome has two DNA molecules with it. And when these DNA molecules become condensed, it will become a chromosome which has two chromatids. So how does a chromosome with two chromatids look? See, it will have four arms. See, a chromosome with one chromatid had two arms. It had a P arm and a Q arm. So imagine this is the P arm and this is the Q arm. And I'll again here show you the color different. I'll change the color here. I'm coloring one chromatid in blue color because this is the chromatid that was newly formed due to duplication. So let us call these arms as P dash arm and Q dash arm. So now this is called a duplicated chromosome because it has two chromatids. It is called a duplicated chromosome. See how an unduplicated chromosome became a duplicated chromosome. An unduplicated chromosome had only one chromatid, which is equal to one DNA molecule. Remember, one chromatid means two arms. What are those arms? P arm, Q arm together is one chromatid. So it had one chromatid, and one chromatid is equal to one DNA molecule. Now, after going through this phase, S phase, this is the importance of S phase. After passing through the S phase, one DNA became two DNA. Two DNA on condensation becomes two chromatids. And when a chromosome has two chromatids, I am going to call it not as an unduplicated chromatid, not as an unduplicated chromosome. I am going to call it as a duplicated chromosome. And do you know what these chromatids are called? See, I'm drawing a duplicated chromosome here. So this is one chromatid, which was already there in the beginning. Yes, very good. And this is a second chromatid, which is now forming, which has now formed because of S phase. So we call these two chromatids. Did you notice that these two chromatids are attached at the same centromere? They're united at the centromere. So we call them as sister chromatids. Very good. Sister chromatids is the name given to the chromatids which are duplicates of each other. The red and the blue ones are copies of each other. The red DNA was already there from the beginning. The blue DNA is newly synthesized from the red DNA. You know how it is synthesized. You all have learnt about semi-conservative DNA replication, isn't it? So through semi-conservative means only it is synthesized. So this basics you have to know. Every chromosome before S phase is in an unduplicated state. All are 46 chromosomes. In a human cell, we have 46 chromosomes. Before S phase, each chromosome is in an unduplicated state. So 46 chromosomes have how many DNA molecules? The number of DNA molecule is equal to 46. But after S phase, each chromosome has 2 copies of DNA. So it becomes the number of DNA molecules after S phase becomes 92. 46 becomes 92. Like how 1 became 2. Here, there was only one DNA molecule in the beginning, but after S phase, we have 2 DNA molecules. So in one chromosome, one DNA molecule became 2. In 46 chromosomes, it becomes 46 into 2, 92. This is called DNA duplication. This happens not during G1 phase, not during G2 phase, during the S phase of interphase. And don't mistake, most of the students commit mistakes in chromatids and arms. This is not a chromatid, this is an arm. This and this together is a chromatid. Please don't forget, don't say how many chromatids, 2 chromatids. You will be wrong. It's 2 arms. Here there are 4 arms. P, Q, P dash, Q dash. Because there are 4 arms, P, Q, P dash and Q dash, they make up 2 chromatids, and those chromatids which are united at the centromere are referred to as the sister chromatids. Okay? So this is very basic, children. You should know about this very clearly. Another basic concept, let me finish it off here only because questions will be there on that also. Lesson name, you only tell me what is the lesson name. You've done this in first year, no? In which lesson are you going to learn about cell division? Mitosis, meiosis. If you don't know, find out which is the lesson name. Open your NCERT and find out. Okay. Now, say for example, I'm taking a very simple cell. I'm not going to complicate things by taking a cell which has 46 chromosomes. I will just take one cell which has 4 chromosomes in it. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I'm going to call this cell as 2n is equal to 4. What do you mean by 2n? 2n means diploid. You may ask, what is diploid? Diploid means having 2 sets of chromosomes, 2 boxes of chromosomes. We had learnt about this in genetics. 2 sets or 2 boxes of chromosomes. The question is, how did this cell come to possess 2 boxes of chromosomes? One set came from the sperm and one set came from the egg. So if it is 4, divide 4 by 2. So one set will have 2 chromosomes, the other set will have 2 chromosomes. Isn't it? So the sperm is contributing 2 chromosomes and the egg is contributing 2 chromosomes. And after a process called fertilization, it results in the formation of a diploid cell which has 2 sets of chromosomes. How does a diploid cell come into existence? A diploid cell always comes into existence only by fertilization. There are gametes which contribute chromosomes. Like here, the sperm has contributed. And how do I represent one set of chromosome? I represented two sets as 2n, so I will represent one set as n. So the sperm has brought two chromosomes with it, and the egg has brought two chromosomes with it. 2 plus 2 became equal to 4. What is this n over here? First of all, you know that n is representing one set, and we use a term for this one set. We call it as haploid. So having one set of chromosomes is called haploid. Having two sets of chromosomes is called diploid. Can you tell me the diploid and haploid values for human cell? If the same example is applied to human cells, what will the answer be? Yes. If it is a human cell, then diploid number will be 46. 2n is equal to 46. And how did this 46 chromosomes come about in a cell? The sperm contributed n is equal to 23 and the egg contributed n is equal to 23. And always remember, the set that is contributed by the sperm is called paternal set, and the set contributed by the egg is called the maternal set. So whichever set of chromosomes are brought from the egg is called maternal, and whichever is brought from the sperm is called paternal. So in humans also, there are 23 paternal chromosomes and 23 maternal chromosomes, which together make up a two set complement of 2n is equal to 46. This is done. We are done with the number of chromosomes. Number of chromosome n, you can remember it like that, n for number. So let me erase all this. You have understood that diploid means number of chromosomes. And how did a diploid cell come about? A diploid cell was formed by fertilization. There is contribution by the sperm, contribution by the egg. The egg contributes one set of chromosome. The sperm contributes one set of chromosome. Okay, all this we understood. So N means number. Ploidy it is called. What about DNA content? How many DNA molecules does this cell have? So this DNA content is denoted by alphabet C. Now let us count the number of DNA molecules in this cell. See, each chromosome has only one chromatid. I already told you one chromatid is equal to one DNA molecule. Now tell me how many DNA molecules are there in this cell? One chromosome with one chromatid in an unduplicated form is one DNA molecule. Yes. So this is 4. C is equal to 4. But I am representing diploid as 2n. Since it is a diploid cell, I should not write it as C. I should affix a 2 to it. So it is 2C is equal to 4. So the ploidy of the cell is 2n is equal to 4, and the content of the DNA content of the cell is 2C is equal to 4. 2n is equal to 4, 2C is equal to 4. You want uniformity. You're talking about it. If I just say C is equal to 4, it will become a haploid cell. The 2 over there will tell us that it is not a haploid cell, it is a diploid cell. Okay, so 2n is equal to 4 and 2c is equal to 4 in a cell which is yet to undergo S phase. This cell has not yet started dividing, it has not yet duplicated its chromosomes. See now what will happen. Imagine this cell is waiting to divide. This cell is getting ready to divide. You know what will happen that time? So now at the moment 2n is equal to 4, 2c is equal to 4. So for it to divide, it has to go through S phase. Now let us see what happens to the chromosomes after S phase. So again, I'm showing the nuclear envelope. Now see the chromosomes. Each chromosome I'm drawing now, it has 2 chromatids. Can you see in the previous diagram there was only one chromatid. Now in this there are 2 chromatids. The taller ones also have 2 chromatids. The shorter ones also have 2 chromatids. So now answer my question. Are the chromosomes in duplicated form or unduplicated form? Each chromosome is in its duplicated form or unduplicated form. Yes, it is in its duplicated form. So what are the DNA content? What is the DNA content over each chromosome now? So there are two DNA in this chromosome, there are two DNA in this chromosome, two DNA in this chromosome, two DNA in this chromosome. But number of chromosome is the same, 1, 2, 3, 4. Ploidy is the same, 2n is equal to 4. But DNA became double, 4 2s are 8. See, if RHS has become double, then LHS also you have to make it double, no? So you should not write it as 2C is equal to 8. What should you write it as? You should write it as 4C is equal to 8. Isn't it? If you say 2C is equal to 8, it is wrong. Because the RHS got doubled into 8, you have to add a 2 here. You have to double this side also. So this one becomes 4C is equal to 8. Can you tell me for a human cell now? This is for a cell that I have shown you on the slide. What will the 2n and 2c values be for a human cell before S phase, children? Before S phase in a human cell, it will be 2n is equal to 46, not 26, 46, isn't it? 2c is equal to 46. Now tell me, what about this 2n and 2c value after 2n and 4c value after S phase in a human cell? 2n is still equal to how much? Will 2n also become 92 or 2n will be 46 only? Yes, very good. 2n is equal to 46. What will double now? Content will become double. So instead of writing it as 2c, I'm writing it as 4c. 4c is equal to 92. Very good. A lot of neat questions will appear on this concept, children. Before S phase, the c value is so much. After S phase, what is the c value? Now you know that before S phase and after S phase, the n value will never change, remains the same. The n value, 2n being equal to 4 and 2n being equal to 4 again, are the same. What gets doubled over here? The C value gets doubled. C value means DNA content. Why is the C value getting doubled? Because during S phase, there is DNA duplication. Duplication of DNA occurs. That is the reason why there is a doubling of the C value. From 2C, it becomes 4C. Do not forget, the number of chromatids in a chromosome is equal to the number of DNA molecules. Okay, so two major concepts. What happens to the chromosome during S phase? See, a lot of questions will also be based on in which phase the chromosome has one chromatid, in which phase it has two chromatids. So before S phase, as you can see, there is only one chromatid. Even during cell division also, there will be questions like that. So you have to be thorough with the phases. And this is the very first step for any cell division, isn't it? If a cell does not go through the G1, S and G2 phase, it can never divide, because that is the preparatory phase of cell division. We call it as the preparatory phase rather than calling it resting phase, although it is the name resting phase is attached to it. But technically, strictly speaking, it is actually a preparatory phase. Okay. The next question says, a stage in cell division is shown in the figure. Select the answer which offers correct identification. So what are you seeing here? This is a picture taken straight out of your NCERT. Yes, it is a telophase. Actually, two things are given over here. Two things are signified in this diagram. One is it is telophase. How do you know it is telophase? Because see, the daughter nuclei are formed. The nuclear membrane, nucleolus, Golgi complex, endoplasmic reticulum, all of that which had disappeared will reappear. Reappearance of all the cell organelles which had disappeared happens during telophase. And another thing that is happening here is called cytokinesis. Isn't it? See how there is a furrow that is formed over here, and the furrow deepens, and it deepens towards the inside. See, and finally it gets pinched off. It pinches off the cell into two daughter cells. So we call this as the furrow formation or cleavage. And what kind of a growth is it? It is centripetal growth. Why do we call it as centripetal growth? Because see the furrow, where is it growing? The furrow is growing towards the center, no? Because the furrow is growing towards the center, we call it as centripetal. And this cytokinesis, the cleavage or furrow formation, is only seen in animal cells. In plant cells, we see a different process. Say, for example, this is a plant cell. Exactly in the center, see the nucleus is formed already. In the center, a large sac-like structure starts forming. Exactly in the equator. I'm shading it for you. And this is called the cell plate formation. Which is the cell organelle from which the cell plate formation takes place? Tell me. Cell plate formation originates from Golgi vesicles. Golgi vesicles are small sac-like structures which are originating from the Golgi apparatus, which unite together to form this huge sac-like structure over here. This structure is what is referred to as the cell plate. And see how the cell plate is going to grow. It grows away from the center. It is not growing towards the center. So we call it as centrifugal growth. Centrifugal. Growing away from the center is called centrifugal. And one more thing, this cell plate is associated with spindle fibers. See, there are a lot of spindle fibers which are still there. Cell division is over. Nuclei are formed. Karyokinesis is over. But spindle fibers are still intact. This is what happens in a plant cell. And what do we call these intact spindle fibers? We call them as phragmoplast. So phragmoplast is the name given for the spindle fibers which still persist even after cell division, even after karyokinesis. The spindle fibers have not disappeared. That is called phragmoplast. All right. So two things you should remember about cytokinesis in a plant cell. Cell plate formation from Golgi vesicles, and eventually see what's going to happen. Eventually, this cell plate will meet the cell membrane and it will split the cell into two daughter cells. See, it grows and grows and grows and meets in the end. Here also it grows and meets in the end, and finally it divides the cell into two daughter cells. This becomes one daughter cell, this becomes one daughter cell, and whatever substance is formed in between, this substance is called middle lamella. It is called middle lamella. It becomes the cementing substance between the adjacent plant cells. So centripetal is what is seen in the case of animal cells. Centrifugal is what is seen in the case of plant cells. We are talking about cytokinesis. Cytokinesis is the last step of which phase am I talking about? M phase, where karyokinesis and cytokinesis, two events are there during the M phase. All right. So here the most appropriate one is cytokinesis. Because here they have given telophase. I'm not saying telophase is wrong. But see, they're saying they have endoplasmic reticulum and are not formed yet, they are giving. So this is wrong. So the correct statement is cytokinesis. Cell plate is formed, mitochondria is distributed between the two daughter cells. Okay. Identify the meiotic stage in which the homologous chromosomes separate while the sister chromatids remain associated. So let me find a blank slide here because I have to tell you everything in meiosis. Isn't it? Why is meiosis more prolonged, children? Meiosis is nothing but reductional division. But you know why meiosis is much prolonged in comparison to uh, yes, see, phragmoplast has a very important. These phragmoplasts are the ones which trap the Golgi vesicles, Ardra. I told you that the cell plate is formed by the Golgi vesicles which come to the equator. So the Golgi vesicles are trapped in the equator because of this phragmoplast. Otherwise, they will float away in the cytoplasm. Did you understand? That's why the spindle will persist. The spindle persists, it will help in trapping the Golgi vesicles so that the Golgi vesicles can unite together to form a huge sac-like structure that is referred to as, that is called as cell plate. Meiosis is prolonged because meiosis is a reductional division which happens in two steps. One is called meiosis 1 and one is called meiosis 2. Meiosis 1 and meiosis 2, that's why it is very long. Meiosis 1 has prophase 1, metaphase 1, anaphase 1, and telophase 1. Meiosis 2 has prophase 2, metaphase 2, anaphase 2, and telophase 2. Which is the longest phase of meiosis? The longest phase of meiosis is meiosis 1. Why? Because prophase 1 is the longest of all. Because prophase 1 is longer, meiosis 1 has to be longer in comparison to meiosis 1 and meiosis 2, isn't it? So among the two, meiosis 1 is more prolonged. That's because prophase 1 is more prolonged. So now I am going to discuss about prophase 1. What is so special about prophase 1? Why is prophase 1 so prolonged? Because prophase 1 has 5 stages. The first stage of prophase 1 is called leptotene. I'm going to take the same mother cell, okay? Before I start with prophase 1, I would like to remind you that this is the mother cell I'm going to teach this with. This mother cell has 2 centrioles. Why she has 2 centrioles? Because she has passed through S phase. She can't simply enter S phase. She can't simply enter meiosis. She has to go through S phase. And then notice her chromosomes, all of you. You only answer my question. I will draw the chromosomes. You tell me whether they are in duplicated state or unduplicated state. This is the mother cell. She has already undergone S phase. Yes. Isn't she having a complement of 2n is equal to 4 and 4c is equal to 8? What I showed you? So this is the mother cell I'm going to take into account while explaining meiosis for you, while giving you a recap. So what happens during leptotene? During leptotene, the same cell I'm drawing. Nuclear membrane is very much intact. The centrioles have started migrating away from each other. Spindle has started forming between them. Asters are projecting out. See how asters are projecting out. But chromosomes are very thin. See how thin I'm drawing these chromatids? That is because they have just begun condensation. They are yet to condense fully. So they start becoming visible under the microscope. Actually, they appear thread-like, I have shown a little bit thicker chromosomes. Actually, if you were to look at leptothene, each chromosome will look like this. The chromatids will actually look like threads. And they will have a beaded appearance like this. See, they have a beaded appearance. The beads are called chromomeres. And the threads are called chromonema. And this is the centromere. Actually, you can't see the centromere, but this is diagrammatic. So I'm showing you the centromere. So threads with beads on them. This is how leptothene chromosomes actually look. And if you see the nucleus during leptothene, if this is the nucleus, all the chromosomes appear to be concentrated or appear to be converging from a common point. See, there is a common point from which they are converging. During leptothene, they appear to be converging from a common point. This is the common point from which they're all converging. That's why leptothene is also called the bouquet stage. It's like a flower bouquet, like how in a bouquet all the flowers are spread out. So just like that, the chromosomes appear to be converging from a common point. That's why leptothene is called the bouquet stage. Okay? So one of the ways of identifying leptothene is look for beaded structures, look for very, very thin chromosomes. If at all you see the chromosomes under the microscope, you can actually see that the chromosomes have very thin chromatids because they have not yet become fully condensed. Then comes the second stage. The second stage is called zygotene. In zygotene, the chromosomes become little thick. I'm drawing the cell a little bigger now. Nuclear membrane is still intact. Centriole is still migrating towards the opposite poles. And now see, the chromosomes have become thick. The chromatids have become thick. Leptothene, see, by leptothene, already the chromosomes have duplicated, right? Isn't it, Yashasvi? I told you that before all this starts, S phase is already done. So when S phase happens, chromosome is already in duplicated state. So in leptothene, you have to show chromosomes which are already duplicated because the mother cell has already gone through S phase. Did you understand? Now see the zygotene. I'm drawing the chromosomes very close to each other. They have started attracting each other. The two taller chromosomes are close to each other. And the two shorter chromosomes are also close to each other. This is called synapsis. They have started coming together. There is a mutual attraction between the chromosomes. So one thing you should not forget about zygotene is the attraction. The chromosomes start moving together. They start pairing, we call this. They start forming pairs. See, this and this is a pair. This and this is a pair. So they have started coming together. And you know what? Once they come together, they should not drift away, right? So a protein complex will be formed between them. And this protein complex that is formed in between them is called the synaptonemal complex. So they start coming together and they are held together by forming a protein complex. Actually, we call them as homologous pairs. Such pairs are called homologous pairs, but we can also call them as tetrads, a tetrad or a bivalent. We call such pairs which have come together as homologous pairs, and such an association between the homologous members is called a tetrad or a bivalent. So during zygotine, tetrad or bivalent is very clear, and synapsis is in action. The chromosomes are moving together close to each other. Okay, next. Pachytene, the third phase of prophase 1. See, prophase 1 is so long, there are so many different phases. In Pachytene, what happens is the chromosomes which have started pairing, they will undergo a process called crossing over. See how their arms have started overlapping one another. So this is one chromosome and this is the other chromosome. See how their arms are crossing each other. So what you should not forget about Pachytene is crossing over. They overlap with each other, and this process where they overlap with each other is referred to as crossing over. What are these chromatids which are crossing over called? They are not called sister chromatids. They are called non-sister chromatids. Very good. Non-sister chromatids. Why? Because they don't belong to the same chromosome, right? Nikita, synapse is not a word you use in cell cycle. Synapse is associated with neuron. The junction between the two neurons is called synapse. Did you understand? Whereas in cell cycle, the attraction between the chromosomes is referred to as synapses. Okay. Now, see how they're crossing over. You know what happens when they start overlapping like this? The non-sister chromatids. They will cut and they will get rejoined. They will get interchanged. So I'm showing the cuts as in the form of these lines. They will break away and they will get mutually interchanged, mutually exchanged. This process is called crossing over. And which is the enzyme that brings forth this crossing over? So there will be an enzyme here which is involved in the breakage and reunion. It is called recombinase. The enzyme which brings forth the crossing over process is called recombinase. It is present in a protein complex called recombination nodule. So this is what happens during Pachytene. So I will rub leptotene here and I will move on to the fourth and the longest phase of prophase 1. The fourth and the longest phase of prophase 1 is diplotin. So we are done with leptotene, zygotine, pachytene. We have now reached a point where chromosomes are crossing over, and now we will step into the fourth major stage that is called diplotin. Diplotin may last for months together in eggs of amphibians and eggs of certain fishes and amphibians. So it is the longest phase. The only difference between diplotin and pachytene is here also the chromosomes are in the same position. They have successfully undergone crossing over. See, they have successfully undergone crossing over, but you know what? They will start moving away from each other. So the most important thing about diplotin is they start repelling from each other. See, a lot of space is there between them. They start repelling. So let me show you the points where crossing over happened. And see these X-shaped structures. There is an X over here on top. wherever the overlapping and crossing over took place, and there is an X over here. What are these structures called? These structures are called chiasmata. So the chiasmata become very clearly visible during diplotin. Chiasmata are the points where the chromatids have undergone overlapping. They have overlapped each other. Why is it clearly visible? Why it was not visible during Pachytene? Because during Pachytene, they were very close to each other. You cannot see it under the microscope. But now they have started repelling away from each other. There is repulsion of chromosomes, and as a result, there is a space created between them. There you can see the points where they underwent crossing over. Those points of crossing over are called chiasmata. So this is what happens in diplotin. Repulsion happens. Where did attraction happen? Attraction happened in zygote. They came together. Now they are moving away from each other. That repulsion is happening during diplotin. Now the last phase of prophase 1. What is the last phase of prophase 1? The fifth and the final stage of prophase 1 is called diakinesis. It is called diakinesis, or it is called terminalization. Now here I will show you the cell. Until now I've been showing only the chromosome. Now finally again I'm showing the cell. Why? Because see, the nuclear membrane has almost gone away. And see the centrioles, they have reached the opposite poles. And the spindle has also started forming. That means almost the cell is ready for metaphase. After prophase 1 is metaphase 1. After prophase 1 is metaphase 1. So the cell is almost ready for metaphase. Now where are the pairs of chromosomes? See, this is the longer pair. And notice how now there are no X-shaped structures. Only the ends of the non-sister chromatids are in contact. You will not see any X-shaped structure. Similarly, the other pair, the smaller pair, only the ends of the chromosomes are in contact. Chiasmata has disappeared. So show these lines which are the points of crossing over, the points where crossing over happened. So this is one homologous pair, one tetrad, and this is the second homologous pair or the second tetrad. Okay, see, you cannot see the points of crossing over anymore because only the ends of the chromosome are touching. You cannot see these X-shaped structures. Chiasmata has disappeared. And diakinesis is also called transition to metaphase. That means the cell is making a shift. The cell is transitioning into the next step. The next step is metaphase 1. After prophase 1, it is metaphase 1. So the cell is making a transition into metaphase 1. That's why diakinesis, we say that it is the transition to metaphase 1. So that's why now you realize why prophase 1 is so long, because there are 5 substages in it. Leptotene, zygotene, pachytene, diplotin, diakinesis. So which is the next stage now? The next stage is metaphase 1. In metaphase 1, the chromosomes will get aligned at the equator. Just like metaphase of mitosis, there is alignment, but notice how the chromosomes which come to the equator are not alone. They come along with they are still with their pairs. The two longer ones are still a pair. The two shorter ones are still a pair. So let us randomly show these points where crossing over took place. Now see, they are not in contact with each other, isn't it? They are just forming a pair. So let me call this as A and this as A dash. A and A dash are a pair. B and B dash are a pair. So they are forming a pair in the equator. And what is this equatorial zone called? It is called double metaphase plate. Why is it called double metaphase plate? Because chromosomes have come to the equator, but they have not come singly. They are along with their pair. A has a partner who is A dash. B has a partner who is B dash. So A is with its partner, B is with its partner. They are not single. They are very much with their pair. So by now the spindle apparatus is perfectly established. So this is the spindle apparatus. Okay, so this is why we call metaphase, the equatorial plate that is formed during metaphase, as double metaphase plate. And you know, the coming together at the equator is called congression. The chromosomes have to get pulled to the equator. First, they should form a line, no? The forming of the line is called congression. Because they have congressed, they come to the center, they form an equatorial plate, which is called the double metaphase plate. All right. Now, what comes after metaphase 1? After metaphase 1 is anaphase 1. Now, this is a very sad phase because until now they were a pair, but now sadly the pairs are going to get separated from one another. A will get pulled away from A dash and B will get pulled away from B dash. So whatever were a pair until now, they will become single now. See, this is A is going away to the upper pole. A dash is going away to the lower pole. This is B. And this is B dash. They get dragged away. So sadly, they are no longer a pair now. They are becoming single. A is going up. A dash is coming down. B is going up. B dash is coming down. This process is called segregation. Segregation is nothing but separation of what pairs? Homologous pairs. Separation of homologous pairs of chromosomes is referred to as segregation. So they are no longer a pair, they become single. This is the one of the most important phases of meiosis, anaphase 1. Because this is where reduction happens. The number of chromosomes get reduced into half in this phase, anaphase 1. They are getting, and see, nothing is happening to the centromere. Centromere is intact, and did you all notice that the chromosome that is moving to the pole is very much in a duplicated state? See, it has two chromatids. All this they will ask in the form of questions. The chromosomes which are migrating towards the opposite poles during anaphase 1 have one chromatid, two chromatid, three chromatid, four chromatid. You should say two chromatids because see, the centromere is intact, nothing has happened, and these two chromatids are still together. As it is, they're getting pulled away. But what is getting separated? Pairs are getting separated. Until now, A and A dash were a pair. B and B dash were a pair. But now they are no longer a pair. They get segregated from each other. So this is anaphase 1, which is the last phase, children, of meiosis 1. The last phase of meiosis 1 is telophase 1. Yes. See what happens in telophase 1. Finally, we will get two daughter cells now after all this story. Telophase 1. So in telophase 1, finally see A and B will accumulate, will assemble here in the upper pole. So this is A and this is B. Sadly, they're not pairs. They're missing their counterparts. Their counterparts have gone to the cell below. So this is A dash and B dash. They have migrated towards the opposite poles now. And now what happens is a nuclear membrane forms around them. Once they have been separated from their corresponding pairs, from their matching pairs, a nuclear envelope is formed. And see now what happens to the cytoplasm. The cytoplasm is ready to undergo cleavage. See, ultimately splitting it into two daughter cells. So now we have with us two daughter cells from one cell all the way through meiosis. Now let us count the number of chromosomes. Mother cell had 2n is equal to 4, 4c is equal to 8 after S phase. Now this cell has only 2 chromosomes. 4 has become half. So what should I call it? Should I call it as 2n is equal to 2 or n is equal to 2? N is equal to 2. N is equal to 2. So what have the daughter cells become? They have become haploid. That's why meiosis 1 is called reductional. Why is meiosis 1 called reductional? Meiosis 1 is called reductional because the daughter cell has only half the number of chromosomes which the mother cell had. The mother cell had 4 chromosomes. Now both these daughter cells have only 2. But DNA content is 4 only. See, it's not become 2. Actually, the DNA content and ploidy should be the same after cell division. But here, 2 DNA in this and 2 DNA in this. 4 DNA molecule. 2 DNA here, 2 DNA here, 4. So RHS has become reduced. So I will reduce LHS also. 2C is equal to 4. To maintain uniformity, I will call it as 2C is equal to 4. See the discrepancy here. Ploidy is 2, but chromosome DNA content is 4. And did you notice that the chromosomes are in what state? The chromosomes are still in a duplicated state because they have 2 chromatids in them. That means this is not the end. There is something more. This is not the end of the story. What happens to these two daughter cells, children? What should they enter now? What should they enter now? Is the product of meiosis only 2 daughter cells? Yes, very good. They should now enter meiosis 2. So let me make some space for meiosis 2 here. Each of these daughter cells will now enter meiosis 2. I will not show prophase 2. It is exactly the same as what is shown here. So what I will do is I will directly go to metaphase 2. So they will now enter meiosis 2 after a brief period of break. That break is called interkinesis. They will not immediately enter, okay? They will not immediately go into meiosis 2. After these daughter cells are formed, they want to take some rest. They've gone through so much. So they take a rest, they take a break. That break is called interkinesis. And then they step into meiosis 2. Meiosis 2 is not reductional. See, meiosis 1 is reductional because 4 chromosomes became 2 chromosomes. Meiosis 2 is exactly like mitosis. So see what happens. Prophase 2 I am not showing. It's the same thing. Again, I'll draw chromosomes and here the centrioles are there. See, in interkinesis, the centrioles also duplicate. when they are taking a break, the centrioles will duplicate again because they have only one centriole now. But to form spindle and all that, they need two centrioles. Nothing happens to chromosomes. Please don't think another round of DNA duplication will happen. No. DNA duplication happens only once in the beginning during S phase. After that, in between meiosis 1 and meiosis 2, there is no second round of DNA duplication. Only centriole is added. That's it. So what happens in metaphase 2? See how the chromosomes are aligning in a single line. This time they are aligning in a single line. They are not forming a double line. Because they don't have their pair, no? They are missing their counterparts. In both the daughter cells, the chromosomes are aligning in a single line. This is simply called metaphase plate. No need to call it double metaphase plate. It is simply called metaphase plate. And of course, I should show you the spindle on both sides. The spindle fibers are also established. I have not shown the outline of the cell, but remember this is one cell here and this is the second daughter cell over here. So this is called metaphase 2. They align at the equator. Now, the very important in meiosis 2, the most important phase is anaphase 2. See what happens in anaphase 2 is if this is the chromosome, it is obviously in its duplicated state and it has come to the equator now. So it has a P arm, a Q arm, a P dash arm, and a Q dash arm. On either sides of this centromere, there are kinetochores. These proteins are called kinetochores to which the spindle is attached. And now what happens is when the spindle starts pulling on the kinetochore, this centromere is there, no? This centromere will split. See, it is splitting. When the centromere splits, these two sister chromatids will get pulled away from each other. P and Q will go to the upper pole. P dash and Q dash will come down to the lower pole. So why are they getting separated? Because the centromere splits. This is what happens during anaphase 2. So let me show you the movement of the chromosomes during anaphase 2. So I will take this daughter cell here. I will put arrows. So this is one daughter cell and this is the second daughter cell. Spindle is formed. And now see the chromosomes are getting pulled away and after the centromere splitting. So the migrating chromosomes will have only one chromatid. See, PQ is going up, P dash Q dash is coming down. Here also in the shorter chromosome, PQ is going up, P dash Q dash is coming down. Same thing here also. This is also a commonly asked NEET question. The migrating chromosomes during anaphase 2 have how many chromatids? What is the difference between anaphase 1 and anaphase 2? You should tell me. In anaphase 2, did the centromere split? Sorry, in anaphase 1, did the centromere split? Danyata. Didn't the chromosomal pairs get separated? But here the centromere is splitting. That is the difference between anaphase 1 and anaphase 2. So this is anaphase 2. It is exactly like mitotic anaphase. Even in mitotic anaphase, the same thing happens. Centromere splits and the sister chromatids get separated. So now we have anaphase. Now the next phase, the last phase of meiosis 2 after anaphase 2 is telophase 2. So this cell will enter into telophase 2. So now the migrated chromosomes will once again accumulate at the poles. They will cluster at the poles. and a nuclear membrane will be formed around them. See, nuclear membrane reappears. And see how the cell is also undergoing cytokinesis. So we have two daughter cells over here from this cell. Here also the same story. 1, 2. And inside the nucleus is forming once again. And here also one longer chromosome which is unduplicated now, and one tiny chromosome. One longer chromosome and one tiny chromosome. So now let us see the N and the C values. So totally, by the time meiosis is over, we have 4 daughter cells. 4 daughter cells are there. Yes. N is equal to 2. Now see, the DNA is also 2 only, because the chromosome is in unduplicated condition. So this has 1 DNA, this has 1 DNA, 2 DNA. So I will write it as C is equal to 2. So N is equal to 2, C is equal to 2. All the daughter cells have the same complement. N is equal to 2. See, the N and the C value are the same now. N is equal to 2 and C is equal to 2. So successfully we have 4 haploid daughter cells, not only in terms of the number of chromosome, but also in terms of the DNA content. The content has also reduced from 8. 4C is equal to 8. 4C is equal to 8. It has become reduced into C is equal to 2. 4C is equal to 8 has become reduced to C is equal to 2. And why is it called reductional division, the first one? Because in the first itself, see here only I have written, at the end of meiosis 1 itself, the ploidy came down to half. 2n is equal to 4 became n is equal to 2. 2n is equal to 4 became n is equal to 2 already during meiosis 1. Now the same thing is maintained during meiosis 2. But the only thing is the content also comes down to 2. So I've told you all the important, whatever happens during every single phase of meiosis. So you should be able to answer all the questions. Now let us try to solve some questions based on this. See, identify the meiotic stage in which the homologous chromosomes separate while when do the homologous chromosomes separate? When do the pairs become single? Answer my question fast. I taught you this. Yes, very good. Anaphase 1. In anaphase 1, I told you, sadly, the pairs will get separated from each other. Spindle fibers attach to, this also I told you. Do they directly attach to the centromere of the chromosome? No. Yes, they attach to, where do they attach? Kinetochore. Kinetochore of the chromosomes. Okay? Synapsis. The moment you hear the word synapsis, you have to think of zygotine. Synthesis of RNA and protein. G2 phase. The cell starts synthesizing RNA and protein that is necessary for M phase. Recombinase. Tell me quickly, where is recombinase active? Which phase I am asking? Pachytene. Isn't it? Centromeres do not separate, but chromatids move towards the opposite poles. Anaphase 1. Centromeres do not split. No splitting. They are simply getting pulled away from each other. Yes, very good. Okay, so you match it. In meiosis, answer this question also I discussed. In meiosis, division of the nucleus occurs twice, but replication of DNA is only once. Very good. Isn't it? Division happens during meiosis 1 and meiosis 2. But I told you there is only one S phase. Again and again the DNA will not replicate. Again and again the DNA will not duplicate. Okay? So option A. Prophase. During prophase, things disappear, children. The nuclear membrane, the nucleolus, the Golgi complex, the endoplasmic reticulum, all of them start disappearing. During metaphase, the spindle fibers are established and there is mitotic spindle. Mitotic spindle is fully up and running. During this phase, that is metaphase, the centrioles have migrated towards the opposite pole and the chromosomes have started aligning at the equator. And here they have given another thing I had told you happens during metaphase, chromosomal movement. Chromosomal movement during the metaphase is called congression. This is called congression. They're all dragged to the center. Okay, they're all being dragged towards the center. So one more thing here in the previous slide, along with disappearance of nuclear membrane and all that, in the late prophase actually, even initiation of assembly of mitotic spindle will start. Initiation means it begins. So during prophase, there is initiation of assembly of mitotic spindle. During metaphase, I told you in the next slide, chromosomal movement of spindle towards the equator takes place. What happens during anaphase? We know what happens during anaphase. Chromosomal division, centromere splits. This one is with regard to mitotic anaphase, okay? See, they have not mentioned 1 or 2, right? If nothing is mentioned, that means they are talking about mitosis. Isn't it? So centromere splits, that is called chromosomal division. And in the previous slide, we had seen something reappearing. Things will start reappearing. What all will reappear? Endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi complex, nuclear membrane, nucleolus will reappear. So the first one in the second column was for telophase. Okay. So when it is two different slides, it is difficult to match like this. Now answer, during which stage of meiosis they are asking? The centromere split. When you say centromere divide, it is nothing but centromere splitting. Yes, during anaphase 2. Because anaphase 2 is similar to what anaphase? Mitotic anaphase. It is exactly like mitotic anaphase. If you talk about meiosis, strictly speaking, meiosis 1 is the one that is actually called reductional. And there is nothing wrong if you call meiosis 2 as equational. We don't call it equational. There's nothing wrong if you call it equational, because it is exactly like mitosis. But overall, we call meiosis as reductional, all thanks to meiosis 1. Because that is the key in reducing the diploid to haploid number. Okay? Correct statement they're asking. Meiosis in plants occurs when there is a change from sporophyte to gametophyte. Meiosis produces genetically identical daughter cells. How can it produce genetically identical daughter cell spawns? Mitosis ensures genetic continuity. No, it is meiosis that ensures genetic continuity. So it has to be statement A. You know that when a sporophyte is a diploid, it has to give rise to a haploid gametophyte, then meiosis has to happen. So therefore statement 1 is correct. What does the last statement say? After meiosis 1, the cells are still diploid? Not at all. The cells became n is equal to 2, haploid after meiosis 1. So how can they still be diploid after meiosis 1? So this is also incorrect. Only the first statement is correct. This also very easy. Crossing over occurs between. Crossing over occurs between. Very good. Non-sister chromatids of a tetrad. A tetrad is nothing but made up of homologous chromosomes. And it happens during Pachytene. In meiosis 1, a tetrad or a bivalent is an association of how many chromatids and how many centromeres? How many chromatids and how many centromeres? 4 chromatids and 2 centromeres. Yes, very good. Option D. 4 chromatids, and that's why it's called tetrad, because of 4 chromatids. How many mitotic divisions occur in a cell of a root tip to form 256 cell children? How many mitotic divisions? They have asked number of mitotic divisions, okay? For example, see, I will give you a very simple example here. One cell, one mitotic division will become 2. Then each will undergo 2 more mitotic divisions to become 1, 2, 3, 4. So in the end, we have how many cells, children? We have 4 cells in the end. So when we have 4 cells in the end, the total number of mitotic divisions are 1, 2, 3. So you should do 4 minus 1. You will get 3. Now they're saying in the end you have 256 cells. To 256 minus 1, 255 mitotic divisions. They're not asking number of generations, children. They're asking you have to count each mitotic division. See, 1, 2, 3. Totally you have 4 in the end. So n minus 1 is the formula. Number of mitotic division is n minus 1. How many cells are there? Minus 1. What if I ask you how many generations? If I add how many generations of mitotic divisions are required? See here, I have to take these two together as one generation. This is the first generation. This division is the first generation. And this division is the second. For generations, I will be putting all the 2 in the one single category. So if I ask you number of generations, it will be 8. 2 to the power 8 will be equal to 256. But here we have not asked you the number of generations. They have asked you the number of mitotic divisions. Okay. How many ever cells are there in the end? Minus 1 will give you the number of mitotic divisions. Okay, this you answer. Number of chromatids. I was telling you, lot of questions based on number of chromatids. Number of chromatids in metaphase and anaphase they are saying. Obviously, they're talking about mitosis. Obviously, they're talking about mitosis. See, what generation thing, what I told you was, if I ask you to take into account mitosis, you will take this as 1, and these two daughter cells undergoing two mitotic divisions as 1 and 2. But if I ask you generation, this is the first generation. First generation. For the second generation, you will be taking into account both these as 1 only. So this will be the second generation. So if I ask you how many generations of divisions are required to obtain 4 cells, you will say 2 generations. If I ask you how many mitotic divisions are there without using the word generation, then you will count this as 1, you will count this as 2, you will count this as 3. Did you understand, Ria? Okay. So here in metaphase, there will be 2 chromatids, and in anaphase, there will be 1 chromatid. Yes, second option. In metaphase, all the chromosomes are at the equator. They have 2 chromatids. And since it is mitotic anaphase, in mitotic anaphase, there is splitting of centromere. So because there is splitting of centromere, there has to be a single chromatid while the chromosome is migrating towards the opposite poles. This also I have taught you. Cytokinesis in animal cell occurs by dash method in dash direction, in plant cells by dash method in dash direction. In animal cells, it is furrowing in centripetal, centripetal, and cell plate. In plant cells, it is centrifugal. Towards the center is centripetal, towards away from the center is centrifugal. So it is second option. Formation of syncytium is due to. Syncytium is a multinucleate condition, children. Imagine a cell is dividing. If a cell is dividing and if karyokinesis is happening and cytokinesis does not happen, then it is referred to as, it results in the formation of a multinucleate condition. Very good. It is D. Karyokinesis takes place, but it is not followed by cytokinesis. I hope you know the best example for syncytium is the liquid endosperm of the coconut. The liquid endosperm is actually a syncytium. Cytokinesis is division of cytoplasm, Danyata. Division of cytoplasm. Once the nucleus has divided, the cytoplasm has to divide, right? So it is the division of cytoplasm. Yes, even the tapetum also of your anther has such syncytial cells in it. Now answer the question, how many generations they have asked of mitotic divisions are necessary to form 182 cells. 1 cell becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8, 8 becomes 16, 16 becomes 32, 32 becomes 64, and 64 becomes 128. So generation 1, generation 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 generations are required to obtain 128 cells. They are not asking number of mitotic division. Number of mitotic division means n minus 1. 127 it will become. Here they're asking how many generations. Okay. Histone proteins are not synthesized during. Histone proteins are actually not synthesized during S phase. In S phase, only 2 steps happen. that is DNA replication and centriole duplication. So there is no synthesis of histone proteins during S phase. In the formation of 60 zygotes in a tomato flower, the minimum number of meiotic divisions involved will be. So imagine you need 60 zygotes in a plant. To obtain 60 zygotes, you need 60 eggs and 60 pollen grains. One meiotic division gives me 4 pollen grains. So how many meiotic divisions will give me 60 pollen grains? So I will get 60 divided by 4, 15 meiotic divisions. 60 eggs. You know that out of the 4 eggs that are formed by meiosis, 3 will die during megasporogenesis. So I will get only 1 egg. So 60 meiotic divisions will give me 60 eggs. So I need these 60 meiotic divisions for the egg and these 15 in addition for the pollen. So the answer is 60 plus 15, 75 meiotic divisions. So this is specially with reference to angiosperms, because in angiosperms, 1:1 for egg formation. Even in humans also this applies, no? In humans also the sperm production ratio is 1 meiosis, 4 sperm. Oogenesis, it's only 1 egg. This applies for animals also. Okay, 1:1. Yes, monosporic development. Very good. Out of the 4 megaspores, 3 will die. So only 1 egg is formed. Okay. So again, for today's homework, you can solve the first 15 questions from the homework part of this particular chapter, children, cell cycle and cell division. And please go through the NCRT part as well as the NEAT part of digestion and absorption. It is very simple. You just have to spend some time, especially with the reaction part. What process happens in the stomach, in the intestine, which are the enzymes of the stomach, liver, pancreas, intestinal glands or crypts of Lieberkühn. Okay, children? So thank you, everybody.